RSS is 20, the latest from our daily newsletter at podnews.net. RSS 2.0 celebrated its 20th anniversary yesterday. It was the first version of RSS to include namespaces, which allow for extensions of the format. Major namespaces in use today include those from Apple and the new podcast namespace. Apple Podcasts wants a website link for your podcast. In an email, the company has reiterated that your podcast should have a link to its homepage in the link tag, which is normally set with your podcast hosting company's dashboard. Apple suggests it's an EU legal requirement. Measurement company Podtrac has seen a significant growth in the shows using its analytics, according to new data from John Spurlock's Livewire. iHeart's Spreaker, a podcast hosting company, appears to have added the Podtrac code to the majority of new episodes. Amazon Music is celebrating 2 years since the launch of podcasts in the app. It currently has a 0.7% share globally, though it is a top 3 app in Japan. In the UK, some users are seeing an incentive in the Amazon app to play a podcast and get paid £5. Despite adding support for removing the Apple Core Media user agent in iOS 16, disappointingly Apple Podcasts doesn't yet use it. Most podcast analytics assume that Apple Core Media is the same as Apple Podcasts, which incorrectly boosts Apple figures by 4%. The winners of the Irish Podcast Awards were announced on Friday. Podcast of the Year went to The Witness. Podcast hosting company Buzzsprout has added control of mid-roll settings for Buzzsprout ads. The New Zealand Podcast Awards are looking for judges. You don't have to be in New Zealand. Billboard covers Spotify's appearance as the new #1 podcast publisher. Podcast Hall of Famer Evo Terra is to write a newsletter on audio fiction podcasts, specifically those that have completed, so you can listen right through to the end. The newsletter is called, fittingly, The End. And Rebecca Lavoie, a podcast critic and executive, has questioned why the New York Times has not updated or corrected the reporting in Serial after new developments in the case. And the tech stuff, people and tips and tricks all return tomorrow. And you might have spotted we published earlier today than normal. That's to allow time to reflect today. And in podcast news, Podland News has an extra episode today containing a full-length interview with Persephonica's Dino Sophos, a look at Red Circle's new dynamic ad system for creators with Mike Cadin, and more from Eric Newsom about his time at Audible. Congratulations to the Accidental Tech podcast for reaching episode 500. The show is hosted by Marco Arment, Casey Liss and John Syracusa. And CBC Podcast's Cooper Island has been chosen to be included in a Canada-wide education initiative as part of Truth and Reconciliation Week 2022, a programme dedicated to educating students about Indigenous culture, the Canadian residential school system and intergenerational trauma. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.